I think it's hugely important to spend time just in a secret place, worshipping God, where it's just us and Him. And I think, we often talk about our quiet time with God, and those don't necessarily have to be quiet times. If we choose to connect with Him through worship, whether that is picking up a guitar or whether that is going for a walk, surrounded by nature, if you're lucky enough to live in the country, our quiet times as such can look so different. But however we connect with God, we've got to be reading the Bible, getting into His Word, feeding ourselves with truth when we're being bombarded with all kinds of things that just aren't eternal and aren't going to satisfy us eternally. We need to be filling ourselves with God's Word. We also need to be praying with Him and having, feeding that relationship with Him. But however we do that, it doesn't really matter. And I think for me, that often looks different. So I'm not someone that can just sit in a chair, partly because I've just got ants in my pants all the time, but I can't just sit in a chair and, and pray sitting down for even half an hour sometimes. I'm on the go. I prefer to sometimes just walk around a room or, stand up, kind of stops you from falling asleep. Just kind of keeping active almost. And just, I'm so trying to work at just having an on-the-go relationship with God, where yes, there is those designated times of praying, reading the Bible, worship, but also just, relating things back to Him that I see when I'm out at work or when I'm hanging out with my friends or when I'm going for a jog, and just relating things back to Him, finding opportunities to thank God for things, finding opportunities to, almost be attentive to what He's saying and give Him space to speak. I think that's a huge thing for me. I'm good at talking at God, and so want to get better at just making space for Him to talk back, to answer, and just to speak even when I'm not expecting it. I think for me personally, I find it easy to enter into a place of worship when things seem to be going great. I'm happy, life is good, the sun's shining. And in some ways, I equally find it quite easy to enter into worship when I'm desperate as well, and when actually life sucks, for lack of better words, when there's pain and struggles and questions, and uncertainties in life. I actually find in some ways, again, that's like quite a natural response to really reach out to God, and to acknowledge my need for Him. The times when I find it hardest is in the middle ground, where it's just the daily grind, the kind of day-to-day monotony of life in some ways, when there's, neither amazing, great stuff happening and neither, despair and troubles. So it's during those times when life seems mundane that it is a challenge to choose to worship God. And I think, again, it comes back to that worship being a duty and a joy. And, there is something about it just being our duty to do it, whether we feel like it or not. And actually, I think in some ways, God values that so highly when we really don't feel like it, but we do it anyway. And we choose to enter in, and we choose to lift up His name and call Him a sovereign God, even when it really, life doesn't suggest that He might be, and when we are full of uncertainties. So I think there's something really important about choosing to do it regardless, and He sees that as, as really valuable, and He does see our hearts and our motives.